So let's get started with setting up a MongoDB database and registering for Atlas. So the first thing I'm going to do is in a browser, I'm going to go to mongodb.com. And right on the home page, you should see something that says try it free. There's direct links in the core shell as well. So I'm going to click on try it free. And it's going to ask me to sign up. I already used my pcc.edu email address to register. So this time I'm going to try my Comcast address. So Mark Goodman, PCC, and then my email address, let's do mark.goodman@comcast.net. And then a valid password. Yeah. Okay, and then agree to the terms of service and privacy policy, and then create an Atlas account. So you can do that with your pcc.edu email address, or if you have a Google account you want to use, you can do that. And then it's going to send me an email to confirm my membership. So I'm going to have to go over to my Comcast email, and it should say verify your MongoDB email address. It will include a link that I can click on to verify that I am who I say I am. So that's all you need to do to register. And then we need to configure some information about a project and a database in order to create a database on the cloud. So what is my goal today? I want to learn MongoDB. And what type of application am I building? I'm just going to say other, and then lab. And then my preferred language is going to be Python. Drivers are available in all of these popular languages. And so once you have your MongoDB database up, you can talk to it from all these different languages. And then I'm going to click the finish button. So here I am on deploy a cloud database screen, and by default, advanced is selected, but you're going to want free unless you're like a power user. If you want to spend money, it's only 0.8 cents per hour for Connect, which is less than $60 a month. So less than some of our cable bills. And then I'm just going to create a free account here. And then shared for free. It's asking me where I want to host my database. And by default, it's going to park it on Amazon Web Services. But if you want to be on Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure, you can do that. I'm going to change my region to Oregon, North America, on the principle that it might speed up my access time a little bit, maybe not. If you're in Europe or Asia or Australia, South America, Middle East, Africa, they have servers that you can park your database on all over the place. And then cluster tier, M0 sandbox, shared RAM, 512 megabyte storage. So just keep in mind that there is a limit to how much storage you can use for free, but it is free forever. So that's good. And then there are higher level tiers that you can do at $9 per month and $25 per month, but this will be more than we need. And then you can specify what version of MongoDB to use. The default's fine. And then for cluster name, you can change this to anything that's going to make sense to you. And you can have different clusters. But I'm just going to call this sandbox. So this is going to be the sandbox that I use for development. And then press create cluster at the end. And then, so this may be a little confusing, but I created a MongoDB account to get access here. It's not asking me for that account. So I have an account with MongoDB as a person. What this is asking me for is a database user account that will be able to read and write information from the database. And it's asking me how I want to identify that I'm authorized to connect to the database. And your two choices are by specifying a username and password in a connection string that's used to connect to the database via your database driver, or by having a certificate, which is using like private key and public key authentication. And so if you go this route, you're going to get a file that you need to store in a particular location. And I'm just going to go ahead and do username and password because it's easy. It's not as secure as having a certificate that you use for authentication, but I don't really care that much about security here. So I'm going to go ahead and for username, let's do course instructor user, CI user. And then the password is going to be pretty much whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to do CI user dash CIS 233 capital Y. And then I'm going to create that. And now I have to actually remember that, at least for a minute here. So I created my user and this little thing popped up. It says M0 cluster provisioning. This will take a little bit of time, but I will continue talking here. I'm going to close that. Okay, so the next thing it's asking is where I want to connect from. And you can select your local environment or cloud environment. So if you're going to be working on this on the same machine that's connected statically to the internet, probably you want to use your local environment. Or if you're going to be moving around or accessing it from other cloud-based applications, you'd use this. That's advanced. So I'm just going to use local environment. So this next thing is this one's a little tricky as well. So this is to create a list of IP addresses that are authorized to connect to the database. So as a security measure, and this is a pretty good one, as a security measure, you can specify only specific machines with fixed IP addresses that can connect to the database and read and write from it. If you choose to go this route, if you have a static IP address or it doesn't get changed very often, you can find out your IP address by like doing a Google search for what's my IP, and it will tell you right here what the internet thinks your IP address is. And you can copy this and go back to here and paste that in and enter a description like MG's home computer and add it as an entry. If you do this, also add my IP address so that I can test your code in your database when you turn your lab in. And I included my IP address on the lab instructions page. So be sure to add my IP address. The alternative here, and this is less secure, but it's perfectly adequate for what we're doing today, is use 0.0.0.0/0. And this is basically a mask that specifies all IP addresses on all networks. So if you do this, you can connect to the database from any machine on the internet, and you'll have the whatever permissions you're authenticated for. So this is the simplest thing to do, and you should definitely use this. if like you're on, if you have like dynamic IP address assignment, like DHCP or something, and your IP address changes from time to time, this is an easy way of avoiding having to reconfigure your access list. Just go ahead and use this. But keep in mind that if you were doing a real project and you had secure data that you wanted to restrict access to, this is probably not what you want. So like I said, this is the easiest thing to do. And this time I'll go ahead and do that. Add entry. I'm not going to save my password here. And then I think that's everything for this page. So we'll finish and close. Congratulations. Go to the database. And then this is the main pane for viewing your database on Atlas.